My billionaire husband had no idea I was a top-tier succubus. I was terrified of draining his life force. So, for nearly a year of marriage, I never slept with him. He remained as doting and loving as ever, but the way he looked at me, it was starting to change. It wasn't until a series of strange, floating comments appeared before my eyes, that I understood his side of the story. When you first got married, your husband just thought you were shy. 6 months in, your husband thought you were saving yourself for an old flame. Now, almost a year later, he's still all smiles on the surface, but his restraint is driving him to the brink of insanity. He has a secret room in his bedroom. It's full of things to lock you up with. Faced with your dangerously repressed husband, you have only one option: run. Of course, I didn't listen. That very night, I hugged my pillow and knocked on my husband's door. Remembering my condition, I asked hesitantly, "Honey, are you capable?" My husband simply raised an eyebrow, reached up, and slowly took off his glasses. The next morning, I couldn't get out of bed. I could only miserably type into my phone's search bar, "Is it possible for a succubus to have her life force drained by a human?" I've been inseparable from Leo, the scion of one of the city's most powerful families, since we were children. But on my 18th birthday, something changed. I awakened as a top-tier succubus. The nature of a succubus is a strange one. Once you give in to your desires, they become an unstoppable flood. Most of us have only two choices: a lifetime of celibacy, or finding a partner with an exceptionally strong constitution. Because a succubus is still a demon, during intimacy with a normal human, we uncontrollably drain their life force, harming their body to sustain our own. There have been news reports of succubi accidentally killing their partners. I awakened 2 months after Leo and I officially started dating. The wild, rebellious golden boy could never hide his affection for me. The moment high school was over, he confessed his feelings, and I became his girlfriend. On our first date after my awakening, Leo was waiting for me downstairs. When he saw me, he raised a surprised eyebrow. "Why are you so covered up today?" I looked down at my long-sleeved shirt and pants. "Sun protection." Leo opened his umbrella, holding it over my head. He then moved to take my hand. I remembered my doctor's solemn warning. If I had no intention of becoming intimate, I had to be extremely careful about physical contact with the opposite sex. Leo's hand was already holding mine, but that wasn't enough for him. He lowered the umbrella, leaning in to kiss me. "I've missed you like crazy these past 3 days, he whispered, his voice low and close to my ear. The moment he drew near, his scent and warmth washed over me like a tidal wave. My desire was instantly ignited. My temperature soared, my face flushed, and my throat went dry. My heart felt like it was being scratched by 1,000 tiny claws. An unbearable, spreading itch. I desperately wanted to throw my arms around him, but I was terrified of hurting him. The image of a dead man from the news, a succubus's partner, flashed in my mind. I snapped back to reality. Just as his lips brushed the corner of my mouth, I took a sharp step back, dodging his kiss. Leo stood frozen, umbrella still in hand. He stared at me, confused, a rare look of hurt on his face. I quickly made an excuse to soothe him. "My mom's watching from the window upstairs." He stepped forward, closing the distance between us again, his arm instinctively wrapped around my shoulders. "Oh." He looked down at me, his gaze serious. "I thought maybe you'd forgotten me after 3 days. His words made me laugh. How could I? I gently patted his shoulder through his shirt. "I missed you, too." Our relationship was built on a deep foundation. We didn't need a break. In period. Our love was effortless. My only problem was that Leo loved me too much. Once we were officially together after high school, he dropped all restraint. To the world, he was the cool, aloof young master. In private, he wanted to be glued to my side 247. Many times, he came dangerously close to crossing the final line. He would suffer, but I suffered even more. Every time I came home from seeing him, I had to take medication to suppress the uncontrollable, shameful reactions of my body. I thought about telling Leo about my condition, but he was a premature baby, frail and sickly as a child. Though he was now coddled and strong, his family was never complacent, and neither was I. I was terrified of hurting him, of letting my bizarre nature drain the life out of him. The memory of him as a child in a hospital bed, pale and fragile, still haunted me. So, before we got married, I used the excuse of not believing in premarital sex. Leo loved me and respected my wishes. He rarely pushed me. Instead, he channeled all that energy into himself. He finished his studies at lightning speed, established his independence, and built a successful business empire. And on the day he was legally old enough to marry, he threw me a grand proposal. He never pressured me, He only pressured himself. That night, the gentle moonlight by the river illuminated his handsome, well, defined face. He was so perfect. I couldn't find a single reason to refuse. On our wedding night, after all the guests had left, it was just the two of us. He moved to carry me to the bathroom, but I stopped him. I sat across from him, head bowed, hesitating for a long time before finally murmuring, "Leo, can I ask you for something?" He immediately turned to look at me, pulling me into his arms. "What is it?" he asked. "You don't have to ask. You know I'd agree to anything you say." I lifted my lashes to meet his gaze. Really, the past few years in the business world had transformed him. His presence was calmer, more stable, as if the last traces of his boyishness had been completely sheathed. As he sat there, one arm around me, the other casually loosening the top 2 buttons of his shirt, revealing the clean lines of his throat, he was temptation itself. So sexy. He even chuckled softly in my ear. "When have I ever broken a promise to you?" This was the man I loved, but I couldn't. I dared not get close to him. I fought back the restless stirring in my body and looked away. Taking a deep breath, I finally said, "Leo, we've just gotten married, and I'm still not used to it. Can we sleep in separate rooms for a couple of years?" Leo's hand, halfway through unbuttoning his shirt, froze. I could feel the arm around me go rigid. I didn't dare look him in the eye. I only heard his low voice. "Ivy," he asked, "can I know why?" I clutched the hem of his shirt, wrinkling the pristine white fabric. I recited the excuse I'd prepared. "I'm just not used to it. Suddenly going from being your girlfriend to your wife. I'm shy," I said, despite how sudden my request was, despite how flimsy my reason sounded. Leo only looked down at me, watching me in silence for a long moment. He didn't press me further. He only asked, "Does it have to be 2 years?" He gently caressed my fingers, his voice a low whisper. "That's too long." I lowered my head. "Leo, just give me 2 years first." After I spoke, Leo said nothing more. He just sat there, quietly watching me. I couldn't bear his scorching gaze. I stood up and turned to the side. "Tonight, I'll sleep in the guest room." He finally moved, but it was to grab my hand. "You sleep here," he said. "I'll go out." That night, I tossed and turned until the early hours in the massive, crimson, decorated bed of the master bedroom, unable to sleep. The look in Leo's eyes as he left was too deep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, struggling to suppress his emotions. The scene would then shift, and I'd see a young Leo in a stark white hospital gown, lying pale and weak in a hospital bed. If I told him about my condition, he would undoubtedly accommodate me without a second thought. He always put me first, but he could never satisfy me. Instead, I would drain him completely. The proud golden boy had never known failure. I refused to let him experience a sense of defeat because of me, so I had to prevent it from the very start. As much as his emotional hurt pained me, I was more terrified of his body suffering even the slightest harm. I buried my face in a pillow, letting 2 silent tears fall. I hated this strange body of mine. The next day, I woke up early, thinking Leo was still asleep. I went to check on him in the guest room, but as I stepped out, I saw a figure in the kitchen downstairs. Leo was wearing a dark robe, his back to me. He held a ladle, stirring a pot of porridge on the stove. I crept downstairs, quietly opened the door, and silently stood behind him, wrapping my arms around his waist. I rubbed my cheek against his back. "Leo, why are you up so early?" He turned, surprised. "You're awake." He took my hands in his. I tilted my head up, carefully studying his expression. He looked completely natural, his eyes filled with gentle love, a faint smile playing on his lips. There was no trace of last night's shadow. "Did you sleep well last night?" I asked, still worried. Leo freed a hand to stroke my head and face. His tone was casual. "Switching from your boyfriend to your husband has me a mix of excitement and nerves." He pointed frankly to the dark circles under his eyes. "Of course, I couldn't sleep, so I figured I'd get up and make you breakfast." I pressed my chin into his back. "You're not upset, are you?" I was asking about last night, about my unreasonable, out of the blue request. He should have been angry. I had prepared 1,000 ways to coax and comfort him. Leo kept his eyes on the porridge, his other hand still holding me from behind. I heard his voice. "I've watched you grow up. You've always had your little quirks." He pinched my cheek. "Even your mom says I spoiled you rotten." He glanced back at me and sighed dramatically. "So no matter what you do, I just have to take it." I laughed and playfully punched him. "You think I'm a handful?" Leo ruffled my hair into a mess. "No, I'm the handful. It's all thanks to your generosity. All thanks to you spoiling me." I laughed again, peeking at the porridge. Do you even know how to cook? I asked distrustfully. Leo was the definition of a man who'd never lifted a finger in the kitchen. This was the first time I'd ever seen him cook. My question made him look a little embarrassed. I have to learn. He glanced at me. We're married now. When you're hungry, I have to be able to make you food. He turned the heat down, starting with a bowl of porridge. I smiled shyly behind his back and said brazenly, "Thank you, hubby." Leo gave a noncommittal hum, trying to act cool with his back to me, but I saw the tips of his ears turn red. That morning, after eating Leo's porridge, the sky was just beginning to brighten. We were both exhausted. We looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. In the end, we fell asleep fully clothed, wrapped in each other's arms on the living room sofa. It felt like our school days, when we sat in the back row of the classroom, napping together on the desk during a noisy break, hidden under his school jacket. Our relationship didn't need a break. In period, our marriage needed one even less. Except for sleeping in different rooms every night, we were no different from any other couple in the honeymoon phase. In fact, we were far sweeter than most. At gatherings with friends, we were always the ones being teased. I would hide my blushing face in Leo's arms while he, like a king on his throne, would lean back with his legs spread, holding me close. Sometimes he'd join in their teasing, but more often, he'd protectively shut them down. All right, that's enough. No more laughing at her. One night, Leo drank too much. I drove on the way back. A drunk Leo was uncharacteristically clingy. I didn't even dare let him sit in the passenger seat. Once, when he was very drunk, he climbed over from the passenger seat, his body burning hot, and collapsed onto me. He buried his face in my neck and tried to wrap his arms around my waist. His breath, his scent, his temperature, it all enveloped me. He was the person I loved most in the world. He could so easily ignite my deepest desires. An unstoppable, phantom itch spread through my body. My temperature shot up, and I felt dizzy. I had to grit my teeth, pull the car over, and roll down all the windows. I carefully protected his head as I pushed him back into the passenger seat, and refastened his seatbelt. The cold wind seemed to sober him up slightly. He opened his dark eyes and stared straight at me. I turned my back to him, fumbling for my medicine. When I heard his dejected voice, "Now you won't even let me hold you," I knew he was drunk. His mind wasn't clear, and he was just being difficult, but my heart still ached for him. I swallowed the bitter pill with cold water. Leo's gaze was hazy as he watched me, confused. "What are you taking?" "Cold medicine," I said. Leo sometimes had blackouts when he drank, so I coaxed him. "I have a cold. Don't get too close. You'll catch it." The cold water, the cold wind, and the pill finally suppressed the unspeakable reactions of my body. But just as I was about to start the car, Leo unbuckled his seatbelt again and slid over, clinging to me. This time, his target was clear. He wrapped his arms around the back of my neck and kissed me directly on the lips. "I'm not afraid," he whispered. "Ivy, give it to me." My mind exploded. The desire I had just suppressed came rushing back with a vengeance. Just as Leo tried to kiss me again, I had to clamp my hand over my mouth, and once more, I pushed him away. In my panic, I didn't control my strength. He was shoved back into his seat, and his head hit the window with a sharp crack. I immediately rushed over, turning on the light to check if he was hurt. This time, Leo finally stayed put. He just curled up in his seat, looking at me pitifully, refusing to let me check his injury. "Wait until my cold is better." "Okay." A drunk Leo was like a petulant child. I caressed his face, comforting him. "Once my cold is gone, we can kiss again." "All right." Only then did Leo relent, turning his head to let me check the back of his head for any injury. The next morning, I opened my eyes to find a fresh-faced Leo sitting by my bed. His dark hair was slightly damp, and he was looking down, taking my temperature. Seeing me awake, he met my eyes and asked, "Why didn't you tell me you had a cold?" My heart skipped a beat. Leo actually remembered last night. His drunken blackouts were truly unpredictable. I scratched my face and made an excuse. "It's just a small cold. Nothing serious. A couple of pills and it's gone." He frowned, showing me the thermometer. "You're at 100.4. No wonder I felt so groggy. I had thought it was a side effect of the medicine." Looking at Leo's serious face, I immediately softened. "I'm sorry, honey," I said. "Next time, I'll tell you if I get a paper cut." I was trying to make him laugh, but he just shot me a glare. He helped me sit up and fed me fever medicine. "If your fever isn't down by 10, I'm taking you to the hospital," he said, watching me take the pills. The hospital? Absolutely not. I knew exactly what was causing this fever. One trip to the hospital, one blood test, one check up, And all my secrets would be exposed. I'm not going, I said. What's with this attitude? You won't even go to the hospital when you're sick. Leo stared at me, his expression hardening. To hide my condition, I often had to act willful in front of him. Just like now, Leo was getting angry, but I just turned my head away. I can't stand the smell of hospitals. I'm not going. Then I'll have Dr. Chen come here to check on you. Leo compromised. Dr. Chen was his private doctor, the one who had looked after him since childhood, but I was still ungrateful. Refusing to back down, I turned my back to him. I don't want Dr. Chen to check on me. I hate doctors. Leo stood by my bed, put down the medicine bowl, his voice cold. You need to give me a reason. Ivy Song. He hadn't called me by my full name in a long time. A shiver of fear ran down my spine. I trembled under the covers, then feigned annoyance and retorted. I told you, I can't stand the smell of hospitals. I hate doctors. Just go to work, I said, my voice muffled by the blankets. I'll take a nap. I'll be fine when I wake up. With that, I closed my eyes, signaling that the conversation was over. I could feel Leo standing there, staring at me for a long time. He knew me too well. Perhaps he sensed I was pretending to be asleep, but thankfully, he eventually just put down the bowl and left. I heard the front door close and the sound of a car engine starting. I crawled to the window and peeked out. Leo was driving away in the Aston Martin he hadn't driven in ages. He's probably angry, I thought, propping my head on my hand. Even I thought I was being strange and unreasonable, let alone the proud Leo. I'll have to find a way to make it up to him when he gets back tonight, I resolved. I knew my own strange body, and I knew the lingering side effects of the suppressants. The fever raged all morning, but by noon, it had subsided. Leo didn't come back, so I drove myself to my studio. I've always loved beautiful dresses, and I studied fashion design in college. I started taking commissions while I was still a student, and by graduation, I had a steady stream of clients. Without any help from my parents or Leo, I used my earnings and my savings to open my own design studio. Now, 3 years later, the studio is running smoothly. I may not be famous, but I'm well established in the industry. Celebrities, socialites, and luxury brands often approach me for custom designs. Like this afternoon, my assistant called to say that a representative from a brand, who had booked an appointment at the end of last year, had arrived to discuss design details in person, with a client on site. I couldn't delay. I quickly got ready and drove to the studio. Only when I arrived did I realize it was someone I knew. It was Julian, a senior from my department in college. Julian was handsome and capable, the object of affection for nearly everyone in our department back then. We met while working on a project together, and somehow, rumors started to fly about us. I had clarified that I had a boyfriend, but at the time, Leo had been sent abroad by his father to handle some company business, and hadn't been back for 2 months. No one believed me. They thought I was making excuses. I was always careful to maintain a professional distance from men, and my interactions with Julian were strictly business. I couldn't stop the campus gossip, so I let it be, but as we continued to work together, I sensed his subtle, deliberate attempts to get closer. Call me conceited, but I didn't want any more trouble, so I withdrew from the project and cut off all contact with him. Later, when Leo returned, he ostentatiously picked me up from school in his supercar for half a semester, finally silencing all the talk and convincing everyone that I did, in fact, have a boyfriend. Seeing him again after 4 years, Julian was as gentlemanly and elegant as ever. He introduced himself as the current head of the brand for the Asia-Pacific region. I put on a surprised and flattered expression. Why did you come in person? I said. You could have just sent an assistant to let us know. Julian, dressed in a khaki suit, sat across from me with his legs crossed. He smiled. I've just taken over the role, and things are quite busy. I wasn't supposed to have the time, he continued, but when I heard you were the head of the studio, I thought I should come and see for myself. I lifted my coffee cup, deliberately turning the back of my hand towards him, to show off the wedding ring on my finger, but Julian seemed not to see it. He continued to talk, even reminiscing about our college days. I went back to school last weekend to see Professor Wang. He said that of all the students he's taught, you're the one who visits him most often. I took a sip of coffee and said flatly, probably because we're both in the city, so it's close. Julian just smiled and shook his head. I had no desire to continue his conversation. My gaze wandered aimlessly out the window. At the end of the street, a black Aston Martin was turning the corner. It was moving too fast for me to see anything but the model. I frowned, remembering the car Leo had driven off in that morning. I checked the time, 3 in the afternoon. He should have been at his company, not outside my studio. I made a mental note to call him later and ask about it. Growing impatient, I interrupted Julian. I handed him the initial drafts. Mr. Jiang, let's talk business first. It was 7 in the evening when I finally left the studio. I declined Julian's dinner invitation, grabbed my things, and drove home. On the way, I called Leo to see if he was off work. The phone rang until it went to voicemail. He rarely missed my calls, thinking he might still be busy at the office. I turned the car around and drove to his company, but the familiar security guard at the entrance told me Leo had already left around 6. I drove home again. When I arrived, the first floor was brightly lit. A faint aroma of cooking wafted from the kitchen. I peeked in and saw Leo, changed into casual clothes, standing at the stove. The air was filled with the scent of a simmering stew. I walked over and leaned against the doorframe, making a peace offering. "You're back." Hearing my voice, Leo glanced at me but said nothing. His expression wasn't cold, but it certainly wasn't warm either. I cleared my throat and stepped into the kitchen. Standing in front of him, I took his hand and placed it on my forehead. "Feel, it's not hot at all," I said. "I'm all better." Leo let me move his hand without resisting. His eyes were fixed on me, watching me in silence. "I'm completely fine," I coaxed again. "I took the medicine you gave me this morning, and I'm all better." Leo looked down at me for a long time, before finally pulling his hand back and humming in agreement. "Why didn't you answer when I called?" I leaned on his shoulder, looking at the soup in the pot. Leo's hand came up to steady my waist. "My phone was in the living room. I didn't hear it." "Oh," I said, sniffing the soup. I deliberately gushed. "It smells so good. You're such an amazing cook." It wasn't a lie. In the 6 months we'd been married, Leo had started cooking frequently. We rarely ate out unless necessary. He was a quick learner. In just half a year, his culinary skills had improved by leaps and bounds. He could make almost any dish I could name. I turned off the stove, took his arm, and said, "Come with me for a second." His silence tonight meant he was still upset. I had to bring out the gift I'd prepared for him early to appease him. Leo followed me to the living room in his slippers. I picked up the gift box from the sofa and handed it to him. "Open it." "What is it?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "See for yourself," I prompted. He looked down and opened the box. Inside was a casual suit I had designed and sewn for him myself. I used to make clothes for him often before we were married. He had the perfect face and figure, my ideal model. But since we got married, with the studio being so busy, this was the first thing I'd made for him. He just stood there, staring. I looked up at his face. "You started wearing dark clothes all the time after you started working. But you look great in light colors too." I held up the light khaki suit. "So I made you a lighter outfit. You can wear it when you're not at work." Leo remained silent, his eyes fixed on the suit. I tentatively leaned closer. "What's wrong? Don't you like it?" I bit my lip, about to put the suit down. "If you don't like it, we can just put it away," I said. "Next time, I'll make you something in a darker color." But Leo stopped my hand. "No," he said. "I love it." He pulled me into a hug, pressing my face into his chest so I couldn't see his expression. "I love it." "Thank you, Ivy." Leaning against his chest, I felt something was off about his voice. "Are you still mad about this morning?" I asked. "No," Leo said. "I'm sorry, I was being too selfish." "It's fine," he said, stroking my back. "I wasn't angry, just worried about you." That night, I thought I had successfully appeased Leo. Dinner was normal. He deboned fish for me and served me soup, even chatting a bit about his day at the office. I considered telling him about the collaboration with Julian's company, but Leo had never liked Julian, even back in college. He wasn't one to take things lying down. The mere hint of Julian's interest in me back then had made him want to go and teach the guy a lesson. I had just managed to calm him down. It was better not to bring it up. I would just speed up the project, deliver the work to Julian's company, and then never have contact with him again. But after dinner, when I came out of the shower hoping to watch a movie with Leo, I found the lights downstairs were already off. The man who usually waited for me on the sofa had already gone to his room. Was Leo just tired? I quietly pushed open the door to the guest room, and saw his back as he lay sleeping, facing away from me. His breathing was steady, as if he were already fast asleep. I closed the door. The collaboration with Julian's company, thanks to my deliberate efforts to speed things up, was completed in just 20 days. But those 20 days were filled with overtime. Design requires inspiration, and revisions take time. Normally, I would schedule a longer timeframe for my projects, to ensure the best possible work for my clients. But I didn't want to drag things out with Julian, so for those 20 days, I left early and came home late every day, perhaps because I was so busy. I didn't notice Leo's unusual silence during that time. No matter how late or early it was, if Leo had the time, he would drive me to and from the studio, but I was often so exhausted that I would fall asleep in the car, so our conversations became even rarer. I didn't notice anything was wrong. I was just holding on, determined to finish the project so I could focus all my attention on Leo. On the final day, Julian came to my studio in person again, as elegant as ever. He leaned back on the sofa, looking at the work I submitted. "You always manage to deliver the biggest surprises," he said. I was propping up my head, sleepy, and didn't respond. After what felt like 5, maybe 10 minutes, Julian finally stopped talking. I was about to stand up and see him out when he changed the subject, suddenly asking about my personal life. "The other night, I was passing by your studio and saw him pick you up." Him? Julian was talking about Leo. He referred to Leo as him. I slowly looked up at Julian. "He's my husband. It's perfectly normal for him to pick me up." A flawless smile appeared on Julian's face. "It's been him all these years. Aren't you tired of it?" he said. "I heard you've known each other since you were born. Can you even tell if what you have is love or just family obligation?" I was already offended the moment he mentioned Leo, but more than that, I was angry. Who was he? A complete outsider, to stand here and criticize my relationship. My face turned cold. "That's my private life, Mr. Jiang. It has nothing to do with you." The smile on Julian's face didn't waver. "Ivy, I still believe we are the most compatible," he said. "Whether it's in our interests, our work, or our lives, we are soulmates." "I'm married, Mr. Jiang," I reminded him coldly. He threw up his hands. "So what?" Julian suddenly leaned closer, his voice a seductive whisper. "Everyone deserves a chance to correct their mistakes. I don't care that you were married to him, Ivy. You've been led along by him your whole life. It's normal that you can't distinguish your own feelings. I loved you in college. You had him by your side even then. I thought I would forget you, but 3 years have passed. I've met many women, and I still feel none of them are as good as you. Ivy, I still love you. I want to pursue you," he said. Julian raised his hand, as if to touch my chin. I swatted his hand away, stood up, and even took 2 steps back. Normally, I wouldn't bother dissecting my feelings for Leo in front of an outsider, but I couldn't stand the way he belittled Leo. "Mr. Jiang, I reject your advances," I said with a frown. "And let me be clear, I despise you. You are a business partner of my studio. That is the only reason you haven't been thrown out yet." I held up my hand for him to see. "This ring, I waited 10 years for it. I fell in love with Leo when I was 15. My 15th birthday wish was to become his bride. When he proposed to me at 25, I didn't hesitate for a second. I couldn't even bear to let him kneel for long before I eagerly said yes." I smiled. "No one knows better than I do that I love him. I only love him," I said. I watched as Julian's face grew uglier. The smile finally wiped from his face. "Perhaps you've never been loved, so you don't understand," I said. 20 years of being by each other's side means he knows what I'm thinking. With just a glance, it means he's the only one I cry to when I'm sad. He knows my entire past. He's the one who held my hand and guided me as I grew up. He is an indelible half of my life. It was rare for me to speak so patiently about love to an outsider. Without Leo, I wouldn't be me. We are like a single tree, with our roots and branches intertwined. I smiled. "You say I don't understand love. When he frowns, I worry. When he's sad, my heart aches. When he's away, I miss him. And when he smiles at me, I want to lay the entire world at his feet for him to choose from. And anything he doesn't want, I have no desire to give to anyone else." I asked Julian, "Is that love?" There was no need to say more. I had already revealed more than I should to a stranger. I gestured towards the door, my face cold. "I won't see you out, Mr. Jiang. And if you are still the contact person for our next collaboration, I will consider refusing the project. I also hope you will refrain from bothering me again. My husband and I are very much in love, and we don't need an outsider's judgment." With that, Julian gave me one last hard look. The easy confidence he had at the beginning was gone, replaced entirely by anger. I ignored him, turning my back until he left. A sound came from the door, and I assumed Julian had gone. I turned around, only to be pulled into a tight embrace. Kisses rained down on me, urgent and overwhelming. Before I could resist, I smelled the familiar scent of the man. It was Leo. The breath I was holding rushed out of me. I let him press me against the wall, dizzy from his intense, desperate kisses. I didn't push him away. We hadn't been this close in a long time, and I wanted to make it up to him. It was only when I felt his hand straying under my clothes that I finally stopped him. Panting, I stared at him. You can't. To stop him now. Even I felt I was being cruel. I expected Leo to look hurt or dissatisfied again, but he didn't. He simply pulled his hand back, buried his head in my shoulder, and held me tight, steadying his breathing. My face flushed. Remembering his unusual behavior, I asked, "You heard what I said to Julian just now, didn't you?" Leo hummed in agreement. I heard. I wanted to cover my face. To have him hear me dissect my feelings like that was incredibly embarrassing. But Leo took my hand. He leaned in and placed a kiss on my forehead. It felt solemn and exceptionally gentle. "I love you, Ivy," he said. "I love you more than anyone in the world." He stared straight into my eyes and slowly repeated the words I had just said. "When you frown, I worry. When you're sad, my heart aches. When you're away, I'm thinking of you every second. And when you smile at me, I also want to lay the entire world at your feet for you to choose from. And anything you don't want, I won't give to anyone else." His gaze was so earnest I couldn't meet it. Thankfully, he seemed to sense my shyness. He lowered his head and hugged me again. He let out a soft, deep sigh against my back. "Thank God," I asked, confused. "Thank God for what?" He gave me a sweet smile, gently touching my cheek. "Ivy, thank God you love me," he said. "Thank God it's me you love." After resolving the matter with Julian's company, I took a short break. I spent my days either resting at home or being taken to Leo's company, to keep him company while he worked. Our relationship was as strong as ever, even sweeter and more inseparable than before. The only thing that felt different was the increasingly intense way Leo would look at me, like a starving wolf that had just spotted its prey. As the months passed, his gaze became more and more blatant, sometimes sending a chill down my spine. But then I'd blink, and he'd be back to his gentle self. One night, we were curled up at home watching a movie. It was supposed to be a horror film, but Leo kept pulling me closer. He asked if I was scared. I was ticklish from his touch and laughed, saying no, so he started kissing me. We were heading towards that dangerous territory again. In the end, it was Leo who forced himself to stop. He hovered over me, his gaze repressed and intense for a long moment, before he finally leaped off the sofa and went into the bathroom around the corner. After he left, I also took out my medicine. Leo was never the only one suffering. When he was in pain, I was right there with him, feeling it even more intensely. As I swallowed the bitter pill, rows of white text suddenly appeared before my eyes. The words were dense and scrolled past quickly. I only managed to catch a few. LMAO. How many times has this scene played out? One of them runs to the bathroom in agony. The other one scrambles for her pills. What a mess. I frowned at the text and instinctively asked aloud, "Who are you?" The fast, scrolling text paused for a moment, then exploded, filling my vision. "You can see us. Hello. Are you talking to us?" I nodded. "I can see the words you're posting." Among the flood of text, one strange comment caught my eye. It was addressed to me. "Run. Get away from your husband. Now." I frowned, displeased. "I would never leave my husband. If you don't leave, you're going to be eaten alive by him." I kept frowning, staring at the words. Piece by piece, other comments started to explain. "You're misunderstanding. They're trying to help you." I looked up, waiting to see what nonsense they could possibly come up with. "When you first got married, your husband just thought you were shy, so that's what this was about." I finally understood, and my face flushed. That was the excuse I had given my husband for sleeping in a separate room. More text followed. 6 months in, your husband thought you were saving yourself for an old flame. An old flame? Who? My old flame. I subconsciously asked the text. What old flame? My past, present, and future as my husband. The text replied quickly. Julian. Obviously. The exclamation point carried a hint of how can you be so dense. Your husband knew the moment Julian first came to see you. The rumors about you and Julian back in college were a pretty big deal. Your husband has been holding a grudge about it ever since. That's why when he came back from abroad, he paraded around in a different supercar every day in front of your classmates. I covered my face as I read the text. Hearing these real-life events retold by strangers was mortifying. And then 6 months ago, Julian shows up again. You start collaborating with his company, leaving early, coming home late, too tired to even talk, and to top it all off, you gave your husband a suit in the same color as Julian's. I had to interrupt. What same color suit? The text went silent for a moment, but I could feel a sense of collective exasperation. Someone finally replied. The first day Julian came to see you, he was wearing a khaki suit. Your husband was downstairs, spying on you too. And that night, you turn around and give your husband a light khaki suit. Your husband was gritting his teeth so hard they nearly shattered. When he accepted that gift, I fell silent, racking my brain. I couldn't for the life of me remember the khaki suit they were talking about. I don't remember, I said. Then I huffed. Who pays attention to what other men are wearing? I only have eyes for what my husband wears. The text paused again, as if speechless. After a moment, a new comment appeared, continuing the story. Now, almost a year later, he's still all smiles on the surface, but his restraint is driving him to the brink of insanity. He has a secret room in his bedroom. It's full of things to lock you up with, following their instructions. I walked over to Leo's guest room. I opened the hidden door inside, and saw a collection of things I shouldn't be seeing. I quickly shut the door, pretending I hadn't seen anything, and returned to the living room. The text continued to flicker. Faced with your dangerously repressed husband, you have only one option. Run. It's been almost half an hour since he went to the bathroom. The sheer force of your husband's willpower is terrifying. If you don't run now, when will you? I didn't know who they were, but discussing my husband's private matters with them felt deeply inappropriate. I cleared my throat and said seriously, my husband's health is fragile. Please don't speak carelessly. I curled up on the sofa, my voice low. I want to be close to him too, but I'm afraid of hurting him. I don't want him to ever get sick again. This time, the text was unanimous, the screen filled with a single word, over and over. Then, someone explained, honey, has it ever occurred to you that your image of a sickly husband is from nearly 20 years ago? Has it occurred to you that he lifts weights and goes for a run every single morning? Has it occurred to you that his private doctor, Dr. Chen, moved out of his house 10 years ago? Has it occurred to you that you shouldn't view men through such a heavy filter, especially a sickly one? Your man is built like a tank now. You hug him and cuddle with him every day. Haven't you felt his muscles? Oh, I said, thinking back on their words. It was true. Leo did work out every day, and whenever I leaned on him, he could easily lift me up with one hand. My face turned red. So my husband, is he considered strong in the traditional sense? I asked them. Can he handle it? The text said nothing, just another wave of Almost an hour later, the bathroom door finally opened. I looked over at Leo. He was dripping wet, radiating a damp chill, but his eyes, fixed on me, were burning hot. That night, after I showered in my room, I didn't hesitate. I hugged my pillow and went downstairs to the guest room. I pushed the door open, walked over to the bed Leo had been sleeping in alone for nearly a year, and confidently slipped under the covers. He had a laptop on his knees and was wearing glasses, seemingly working. I unceremoniously pushed his laptop aside. I patted his shoulder. Leo, let's go to sleep. I blinked, staring at him. He should understand what I meant without me having to say it. Leo, as expected, froze. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. You've made up your mind. I didn't answer, just tilted my head up and kissed him. Leo's gaze instantly deepened. His hand clamped around the back of my neck in a gesture of complete control. Still, I had to ask one last time. Honey, can you handle it? Leo looked like he was about to laugh from sheer exasperation. Ivy Song, he said, are you doubting my capabilities? Well, you were sickly as a child, so, under the pressure of his gaze, I wisely swallowed the rest of my sentence. Leo pulled me into his arms. Then why don't you come and see for yourself if I can handle it? He said. That night was exceptionally long, and that night completely shattered all my previous perceptions of Leo. The next day, I couldn't get up. It was almost afternoon when I finally opened my eyes. The first thing I saw was Leo, watching over me. Last night, I had haltingly explained my strange condition to him. He was so smart. He understood immediately why I had rejected him all those times. No wonder you were taking pills sometimes, he said. He had caught me a few times, but I had lied and said they were vitamins. Seeing me awake, Leo lifted me into his arms and carried me to the bathroom to wash up. As I was drying my face, he stood behind me, unusually silent. I looked up at him, puzzled. Ivy, he said suddenly, taking my wrist, you've overlooked something important. Today, I looked up every recorded case of a succubus. It's not just that they have higher needs in a partner, Leo said, they also have shorter lifespans. It's rare for one to live past 50. The beautiful life of a succubus is exceptionally brief. Whether from the strain or their fragile bodies, they generally live much shorter lives than normal humans. Leo suddenly lowered his head, burying his face in my shoulder. His voice was low and heavy with sorrow. Ivy, we're supposed to live to be 100. I looked down at his hand, gripping mine tightly. No wonder he had been so quiet since I woke up. I patted his hand comfortingly. Maybe I'm the special one, I said. I have you now. You're so wonderful. For you, I'll live to be 100. I'll live long enough to laugh at you when you walk with a tremor, and lose all your hair. But Leo was in no mood for jokes. He seemed genuinely terrified, just holding me tighter. Back then, I was still young. I didn't understand the unspeakable, repressed fear in Leo's silence. I only knew that in the 10 years that followed, Leo gave up everything he had built to dedicate himself to the field of cutting-edge medicine. For the sake of my health, we didn't have children. Leo gathered talent from all over the world, invested fortunes, bought patents, and funded research, vowing to develop a drug that could alter the succubus constitution. He even forbade me from taking the harsh suppressants, with their severe side effects. 10 years later, Leo was 36. He had become the youngest CEO in the advanced pharmaceutical industry, and in that same year, he handed me a single white pill. This pill was the culmination of his 10 years of blood, sweat, and money. Without hesitation, I took the pill and swallowed it with a glass of water. We weren't so young anymore, but I was still just as dependent on him, just as attached. I leaned against Leo's chest, my arms around his waist. Don't worry, I said. I'll be with you until we're 100. Leo hugged me back gently. Ivy, of course I know. The text that had appeared so randomly 10 years ago never came back. I am grateful for those words. They helped Leo and me take that first step. They removed the last barrier between us, and they led us to a long, shared life, hand in hand, for all the years to come.